Hello everyone, welcome to session 26 of Theory of Computation or Formal Languages and Automata Theory. So in today's session we are going to discuss about pumping lemma of context-free language followed by the applications of context-free grammar. So these are the two topics that we are going to discuss in this session. So already we discussed the pumping lemma of a regular language where we use that pumping lemma to prove that a language is not regular. So here also we are having a pumping lemma for context-free languages, and by using this pumping lemma, we can able to prove that a language is not context-free language. Okay. So let us discuss this statement of the pumping lemma. Then we will solve one problem by using this pumping lemma theorem, and followed by that we will discuss the applications. Okay. So just have a look on the statement. So let L be any context-free language. So consider that capital L be a context-free language. Then there is a constant n. So here we are taking a constant n depending only on L. Okay. So here this value of n depends upon the language that we select. Okay. Such that Z is in L. So here Z is nothing but it is a string, right? So Z, small z is a string that belongs to the language, context-free language, capital L. Okay. And here we are having a constant that mod Z greater than or equal to n. That means the length of the string must be greater than or equal to n. Okay. What is n? N is a constant. Okay. Then we may write Z is equal to UVWXY. So here in this pumping lemma of context-free language, we are partitioning the string Z into 5 parts, right? So U, V, W, X, Y. So in 5 parts, we are partitioning the string Z, which is belonging to the language capital L, okay, which belongs to the capital L context-free language, right? So the statement is very simple. Let me explain once again. If L, capital L is a context-free language and there exists some constant n such that small z belongs to capital L, small z is a string that belongs to capital L such that mod z is greater than or equal to n, then so whenever this condition satisfies, that means z is greater than or equal to n, okay, then we can partition the string z into 5 parts u, v, w, x, y, okay, such that so while partitioning you have to follow these three conditions, right? Such that mod Vx should be greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so the length of V part and X part must be greater than or equal to 1, and length of Vwx, that means the length of Vwx, so this part Vwx must be less than or equal to n, less than or equal to n. Then for all I greater than or equal to 0, for all I greater than or equal to 0, then we can write a string u v power I w x power I y belongs to L. Okay. So whenever these two rules are satisfied, that means mod Vx is greater than or equal to 1 and mod Vwx is less than or equal to n, then we write the string. That means we can consider the string in this form u v power I w x power I y. That string will always belongs to L only, right? So if these three conditions are satisfied, then we can say that the language is context-free language. Okay. So this pumping lemma is used to prove that a language is not context-free. Okay. So generally you may get a doubt here why we are writing that u v power I, why we are writing here v power I and x power I, right? So because when you derive the string from start symbol yes, okay, and if you consider the string in this 5 parts u, v, w, x, y, then the recursion will always occur in this part. That means in v part and x part, right? So that's why we are considering it as a v power I, x power I, because we are going to have the recursion in v part and x part. So that is the reason here we are writing u v power I, w, x power I, x power I y. Okay. Why? Because recursion occurs in this part, v part and x part, right? And moreover, as long as you pump any number of v's and any number of x, the string u v power I w x power I y belongs to L only. Okay. So you may have any number of v's along with any number of x, right? So as long as we are pumping as many number of v's as well as many number of x, the string still belongs to the context free language L. Okay, so that is the meaning. Okay, so the statement is very clear. So here we are writing the string z is equal to into 5 parts u, v, w, x, y, and we are checking that mod vx must be greater than or equal to 1 and mod v, wx must be less than or equal to n. So then we can write a string u, v power I, w, x power I, y that always belongs to L only, right? So here why we are writing v power I and x power I means whenever you derive a string from start symbol of a grammar, okay, and if you consider the string which is derived from S in these 5 parts u, v, w, x, y, then the recursion will always occurs in v part and x part, right? So that is the reason we are considering it as a u, v power I, w, x power I, y. Okay. So pumping means that means simply keep on generating the number of v's as well as number of x, right? So as long as you generate this or you pump this number of v's and along with the number of x, then the string will always belongs to L only. Okay. So that is the meaning and that is the statement of pumping lemma, right? Next one. So let us prove that a language is not context free language. So consider that this is the language L is equal to a power n, b power n, c power n such that n is greater than or equal to 1 is not context free, right? So we have to prove it. So the procedure is same, just we are having the 3 rules by using which we can prove that a language is not context free. First one, write down the language property. So from the given statement or from the given property of the language, write down the set of strings. Okay, write down the set of strings that belongs to L. Okay, so a power n, b power n, c power n means number of a's, number of b's, and number of c's will be same. Okay, so first of all, we will take n value is equal to 1 and substitute that 1 in place of n. So you will get first string like a power 1, b power 1, and c power 1. So a power 1, b power 1, c power 1 is nothing but it is a, b, c, right? Next, take n is equal to 2. Substitute 2 in place of n. You will get a square, b square, c square. So a square, b square, c square means 2a's followed by 2b's followed by 2c's, right? Take the value n is equal to 3. You are going to get a cube, b cube, c cube, which is nothing but a 3a's followed by 3b's followed by 3c's, like so on, right? Now, next thing is that consider z. So pick out one of the strings from the L. Okay, just here, one thing that you have to remember while selecting z is that it must be uh, of some more length, right? So it should not be consisting of less number of symbols or its length should not be shorter one, right? So you have to select some larger string, right? So here I am selecting z is equal to a, b, b, c, c. 2a's followed by 2b's followed by 2c's, right? And here mod z is equal to 6. The length of string here is 6. Okay. So here in the statement we discussed that n is some constant. We can assume that n is some length of the string here, right? So mod z is nothing but it is 6. Okay. So length of the string is 6. Okay. And here if you observe mod z is greater than or equal to n. Okay. Greater than or equal to n. Okay. Then next one. Partition z is equal to uvwx. So here what we have to do, we have to partition the considered string z into 5 parts u, v, w, x, y, right? So here how do we partition the string z into 5 part means there is a condition, right? What is that condition? We have to select v and x such that mod vx must be greater than or equal to 1, right? So at least you must have one symbol in v and one symbol in x, right? So here I am considering 2 symbols for V and 1 symbol for X. Okay. So A is considered as U, AB is collectively considered as V, B is considered as W, C is considered as X, and last C is considered as Y, right? Now check out the condition mod Vx must be greater than or equal to 1. So what is mod V? It is of length 2. What is X? It is of length 1. So total it is length 3, right? So V means AB, okay, and X means CB. So mod ABC, mod ABC, what is its length? How many symbols are there? 3 symbols. So 3 is greater than or equal to 1. So condition true, right? Next thing is that you have to consider mod VWX must be less than or equal to 6. That means N. Okay. So here N I mentioned that it's simply a length of the string you have to assume. So mod VWX must be less than or equal to 6, right? So what is V? It is AB. What is W? It is B. And what is X? It is C, right? So what is the length of A, B, B, C? It is 4, right? So 4 is less than or equal to 6. So condition is true, right? Now you have to write the string Z in a form Z is equal to U V power I, W X power I, or and Y. Okay, U V power I, W X power I followed by Y, right? Now you have to consider the different I values. So always select some I value which is greater than 1. Okay. So I value 0 means you will get the same string because U V power 0, W X power 0, Y. Right? So you don't have V and X part, right? So that string is going to be in a language only, right? So to check for the non to check whether that string belongs to a language or not, you have to consider larger I value, right? So you may start checking with I value which is greater than 1. Okay. So here I value is equal to 2 I am considering. So Z is equal to U V power I means V square, W X power I means 2, so it is X square, Y. Okay. So we are getting U V square W X square Y, right? So what is the U here? It is A. What is V? We have considered V is nothing but AB. So you are going to get AB square. W is small b itself. X square is nothing but C square. And Y is nothing but C itself, right? So if you expand it, you are going to get A. AB square means AB, AB. So A followed by AB, AB. Then B will remain same. C square means two C's. C, C. And this C will remain same. So you are going to get the string 2A's followed by B followed by A followed by BB followed by triple C, right? So if you observe this string, you don't have this string in this language, right? Because in the language, all the strings must have the sequence like number of A's followed by number of B's followed by number of C's must be same, right? But here if you observe in the resultant Z value, you observe that A followed by B, followed by A, followed by BB, followed by CC. So if you observe this pattern of Z that we got, here two A's are there, but after that we are having only one B, and moreover A is following the B, right? But as far as this particular language property is concerned, A power n, B power n, C power n, we never have A following B, right? So after B you must have the C. But here in the resultant Z value we are having A after B, right? So which is not acceptable, right? And moreover, the number of A's, number of B's, and number of C's are also not same, right? So this is the string which we will never get for this the given language property A power n, B power n, C power n. So we can directly say that since Z does not belongs to L, the given language is not context free. The given language is not context free, right? So this is the way to prove that a language is not context free, right? So this is how we can use the pumping lemma for proving a language is not context free. Okay. So likewise, practice some other problems. Okay. So just check these three conditions, right? If all the three conditions are satisfied, then the language is context free. If any of the condition is not satisfied, then it is not context free. Okay. And last concept is applications of context free grammar. So generally, this context-free grammar plays a vital role in the defining the syntactic structure of a programming language, right? So generally, we are having different programming languages like C, C++, Java, Python, etc., right? So every programming language is having its own syntax, right? Every programming language is having its own syntax or syntactic rules, right? So to define those syntactic rules, the context-free grammar is used. Okay. Why we are using the context-free grammar for defining the syntactic rule means uh, the programming language constructs like conditional statements, looping statements, okay, structure-related statements can be specified by using this context-free grammar, right? So we can clearly specify those syntactic structures by using this context-free grammar, right? So that is the reason that context-free grammar plays an important role in design of programming languages, right? So design of programming languages means defining the syntactic structure of programming languages, right? So context-free grammar is used to specify the syntactic structure of programming language, right? So generally, the structure of C programming language can be defined by using this CFG, right? So context-free grammar. So we can specify all the syntactic related specification or syntactic related uh, properties by using this context-free grammar. Okay. Next one, context-free grammar is used in the parsing phase of the compiler, right? So generally, let me give one idea related to this. So generally, what we do is we use compiler, right? So let me say C compiler. So C compiler, right? So what is the role of the compiler? Compiler will take the source program as input, which is written in high level language. So here the source program is having .c extension because we are using the C compiler. Then it will convert that high level language into the machine level language, right? Machine level language. Okay. So here generally when we use C compiler, we never get the machine language directly. We are going to get this object code, right? So from that object code, it is going to be converted into .exe file and etc. Right? Just to concise this discussion, I am considering that I am having a C compiler which will convert the source program, this source program which is written in high level language into machine level language, right? So during this conversion, what happens? The compiler will check for the syntactic errors, right? So let me say I have written the instruction in C program like a is equal to a plus semicolon. A is equal to a plus semicolon, right? So this is the instruction which I have written in the C program, source program, right? So the moment when I give this source program as input to the compiler is going to flash an error, like uh, identifier missing in statement in main, right? So identifier is that means the compiler is going to flash an error saying that identifier missing in so and so statement in function main, right? So here if you observe the syntax here, so you could encounter that there is an expected identifier, right? So which we have missed here. So a is equal to a plus semicolon, right? So after plus there is a identifier, there must be an identifier which we have not specified, right? So how the compiler flashes such type of errors means it uses the grammar, right? So generally the grammar of a programming language is specified by using the context-free grammar, right? So the moment when you give the string, the compiler will try to generate that string from that grammar, right? So that we have seen in the concept of derivation. What is derivation? The technique, the sequence of substitutions that we apply to derive a string, right? That is called as derivation. So whenever we give the input program to the compiler, what the compiler do? It will take the context-free grammar. That means the syntax of a programming language, which is defined by using context-free grammar, and check whether that particular input statement is generating from that particular grammar rule or not, right? So here if you observe, generally let me give one rule here, id followed by equal to followed by id followed by plus followed by id followed by semicolon. So this is the grammar rule which I am having, which I have written in form of context free grammar, right? So the moment when I give this input statement a is equal to a plus semicolon to the compiler, what the compiler do is that it will check whether the grammar can able to generate this particular input statement or not. id followed by id followed by plus semicolon, right? So the grammar could not able to generate this input statement. Why? Because the rule is id followed by id followed by plus followed by id followed by semicolon, right? So but we are not having this id. So the given input statement and the generated input statement does not match, right? So by considering this, the compiler can able to flash that error saying identifier is missing in so and so statement in so and so function. Okay, so just to give a brief idea that parsing is nothing but simply checking whether the input statement is in accordance with the grammar rules or not, right? So compiler uses this technique of parsing to check whether the input program is satisfying the syntactic rules or not, right? And next one is structure of HTML document can also be specified by using context-free grammar, right? So web pages already you know, right? So whenever we move across those web pages, we could find that all the web pages are written by using a markup language called HTML, hypertext markup language. So this markup language syntactic structure is also specified by using the CFG. Okay, and moreover, XML, extensible markup language. So XML documents you could have come across having this .xml extension, right? So .xml extension. So generally, for compatibility to transfer the data between the web pages and between the web servers, we use this .xml file, right? So the structure of that XML document is also specified by using CFG. The structure of XML document can be specified by using CFG, right? So anyhow, in overall discussion, we encountered that the context-free grammars are used for defining the syntactic structure of a programming language, okay, or markup language. Okay. So these are the applications of the context-free grammars. So let us move towards the summary of Unit 3. So we have completed all the concepts related to the Unit 3. So we started our discussion with a formal language. Okay, so what is a formal language? It is set nothing but set of strings whose symbols are chosen from some alphabet set sigma. Okay, then we categorize the formal languages into various types like regular languages, context-free languages, context-sensitive languages, recursive languages, recursively enumerable languages likewise, right? And we have seen what is the difference that exists among these languages, right? And next we discussed what is the context-free grammar, how to write that context-free grammar, how to represent it in a mathematical notation, okay? And then we discussed what is meant by derivation, okay? So derivation is nothing but substitutions that we apply in order to generate the sentence or in order to generate the string from the grammar rules. Okay, we are having two types of derivations, leftmost derivation, rightmost derivation. Then we converted that derivation in a form of tree, which is called as a parse tree, right? So leftmost derivation and rightmost derivation can be converted into a tree structure or tree format. That tree is called as parse tree. And next we have seen what is ambiguous grammar. So a grammar is considered as ambiguous grammar for some string w of L of G. There exists more than one LMD or more than one RMD or different parse trees. Okay, then that particular grammar is considered as a ambiguous grammar. So we have seen how to prove that a grammar is ambiguous. Okay, next one we discuss the necessity of simplification of context-free grammar. What is the simplification of context-free grammar actually means? And then we discussed what are the techniques for simplifying the context-free grammar. So three techniques are there: elimination of useless symbols and productions, epsilon productions, and elimination of unit productions, right? So three techniques we learn with different examples. And next we discussed about the normal forms. Okay, what is normal form? What is the necessity of the normal form? And there are two normal forms, Chomsky normal form and Grebatch normal form. We have seen the difference between these two normal forms. Okay, we learned how to convert the given context-free grammar into Chomsky normal form and how to convert the given context-free grammar into Grebatch normal form. Okay, then we discussed about the pumping lemma. So pumping lemma is used to prove that a language is not context-free. And then we already discussed the concept of closure properties. So closure properties means it specifies that context-free languages are closed under the various operations like union, reversal, okay, and then we are having closure likewise, okay. Then next one we discussed about the applications of context-free grammars, right? So application means here the main important point here is that context-free grammars are used for defining the syntactic structure of a programming language, right? So programming languages C, C++, Java can be specified by using these context-free grammar rules. Okay. So this is about the unit 3. So it is very easy. Okay. So just you need to practice the problems related to this simplification of context-free grammar and normal forms. Okay. The remaining problems are easy. The derivation is easiest part. Next one is parse tree, also easy to construct once you are aware of derivation concept. Next, proving the ambiguous grammar. So if you could able to generate two different parse trees for some string, then that grammar is ambiguous. Likewise, so there is a link between the concepts. So try to learn the concepts in a sequential way by establishing the link between them. Okay. Excuse me. So this is about the unit 3. In the next session, we will start our next unit 4, pushdown automata. So we will learn how this context-free language is going to be accepted by pushdown automata. So we'll learn what is pushdown automata, what are its components, okay, and we will design different pushdown automata for different context-free languages, okay. Then we will discuss how to convert this context-free language into that grammar and grammar to context-free language like interconversion we will also discuss. Okay. So that's it for this session. In the next session, we will discuss the fourth unit. Okay. Thank you for attending this session.